Hey, Mike.
What the?
Hey, man, I just got a question real quick.
Man, how long you been standing there?
I don't know, like 5 minutes. I got a
You
question.
scared the crap out of me. You want what?
Yo, I just want to know, how do I get more detail out of my airbrush? You always be doing some detail stuff. How do I
Man,
do that?
You see I'm working, right?
Yeah, it's a real quick.
I mean, you're already in here. You're already in my space. So let me take a break from this. We'll set up some stuff and I'll show you some quick little tips on how to get some better detail out of your airbrush. Detail?
Yeah. Okay, all I want is moolah. Yeah. All I need is moolah. Yeah. Plus I got that pistol, bitch.
What's up, guys? So we're here today and I just want to give you guys some quick tips and some good advice when it comes to getting some detail with your airbrush. A lot of people think that you're going to order an airbrush, with the smallest needle size and that you're going to just automatically produce better quality detail. But if anybody of you guys out there that have tried it and that have actually purchased a really fine detail airbrush and then you end up having the same problems you had with your other airbrush, it's because you're failing to understand a few basic concepts. So in this video, I'm just going to explain to you the way that I achieve detail and the way that I do it. You could do it a different way. There's lots of artists out there do it a different way. But in general, here's some quick advice for actually achieving detail. So let's bring you guys over to the board and we'll talk about a few things. All right. So the very first thing I just want to briefly touch on, because this will vary very much how much detail you can get. And that is going to be the actual surface that you're painting on. Here we have a canvas. Now, if you look closely at the canvas whenever you buy one, you'll see that it actually has a texture to it. A lot of people apply yeso or some other type of primer or medium on top of this to try to get it smooth. The reason people try to get a smooth surface is because it does allow you to produce more detail. So in general, like when we're working on these, on the watercolor paper, right? And you guys have seen me use this a lot, 140 pound watercolor paper. The surface of these is pretty smooth, right? And you could get some pretty good detail on this, but even this is not completely smooth. It has a little bit of a texture, a little bit of a bite to it. So, you could get pretty close to, photorealism with this. You could even achieve some photorealism with this. But if you're trying to achieve detail on a shirt, it's going to be a lot different than trying to achieve detail on a canvas, and as well as it's going to be different from trying to achieve detail on a smooth surface such as watercolor paper or an automotive piece. So the very first thing you have to understand is that depending on your situation, you might have to work things a little differently. So keep that in mind. In general though, the finer and smoother the surface, the more detail you'll be able to produce. All right, now the second tip I want to go over with you, or the second advice, or whatever you want to call it, is air pressure. It's super important that you understand that when you are trying to achieve detail, you are trying to position the needle of the airbrush as close to the surface without touching. You want it really close. You want it as close. If this was a microscopic view, this is your surface where you're painting, and this is the needle from your airbrush sticking out the front end, you want that to be so close, right? Because you want that paint to just come out of the airbrush and stick to the surface, right? You don't want it to have any sort of space. The more space that you have it, the airbrush functions in a canonical circle. So it's a cone, right? Spraying out of your airbrush. Your needle's like this, and from here, you have a cone. It spreads out. That's the reason why when you move away from the surface with an airbrush, you get a bigger dot than when you are closer. You get a smaller dot, right? So the farther you are away from the surface, the more blurry that your line is going to become and bigger, right? So generally speaking, you want to stay close. That comes with a certain amount of territory. The first of is obviously, like we've mentioned, the surface, right? The texture of the surface. If you have a rough surface, even if you get really close, you might get a detailed line, but if the surface is rough, you might get a little bit of what I would call like overspray, an unintentional overspray, because those lumps and those humps will cause turbulence in the air and it'll make it spread unintentionally. It happens even if the surface is perfectly smooth and you spray, you're gonna get a little bit of a spread, right? But the rougher the surface is, and if it's like this, then that spread goes in through all the little cracks and it spreads around farther than on a smooth surface. That being said, the way that you minimize on that and the way that you try not to cause so much overspray and so much spread is by reducing the air pressure. Now, a lot of you guys, I know, run a little bit higher pressure, 30, 35 PSI, and it's harder. It becomes a lot harder to spray the paint when you lower the pressure, especially like at 20 PSI or lower. The Micron that I have here, I have ran it at 15 PSI and it still shoots very, very, very thin paint, but you're able to get super duper precise lines and detail with it. So with the territory of having to get close and wanting to produce a fine line, it means that you also have to lower the air pressure. If you're running 40 PSI, 50 PSI, and you put that needle right up on the surface and you spray some paint, that paint is not only gonna hit that surface, but it's also gonna go whah, right? And a lot of people use it to do effects. If you're doing reduced paints, you can make like some splatters, you can make some nice paint spreads. But if you're trying to achieve detail, that is the ultimate no-no. Lower your air pressure, reduce your paint. The reducing of the paint comes with the territory of lowering the air pressure. Generally speaking, when you lower the air pressure, your paint has to be reduced more and more. The airbrush will have a harder time pulling paint particles from the front, from the nozzle, from that little gap that you create when you pull back the needle, and it creates that little teeny bitty crack that lets paint out, right? That paint is not just being fed out by gravity, it's actually being sucked out by the turbulence of the air that the airbrush is pushing through alongside the nozzle. Same as if you're traveling in a car, right? And if you've ever been with somebody who's a smoker, right? And they're smoking in the car, and then you just happen to crack one of the windows, and what happens? All that smoke goes out that one window, right? Because the air from you traveling, from when you're passing and you're going 70 miles on the highway, right? And that air passing on the outside of the car is actually pulling the air from inside the car out. And that's the way that works. You could do it even without smoke if you're driving around and you just roll down one window and you'll get that kind of going on in your car. That's because the air pressure is trying to suck out air out of your car faster than it can actually replenish the air from your car. So it creates a back pressure, and that's why it makes that sound. In becoming an airbrush artist and being an airbrush artist all this time, I have studied the air for a long time. And so the only conclusion that I can make from my experience is lowering the air pressure and over-reducing the paint. Now, with that being said, there is some caveats here. Sometimes some colors, they don't cover really good when you're doing it like that. They don't. They turn transparent, right? You get a nice, like the Wicked Opaques, and you reduce it down so much, and it's not opaque anymore. It's a transparent. So it requires more work, more passes, but again, that comes with the territory of wanting to create more detail. So get in close, lower your air pressure, and have a smooth surface. Those are the basic principles. Beyond that, the paint reduction is going to matter a lot. Now, on a t-shirt, if you're spraying the original Createx colors and you're using a 0.5 millimeter needle and you're using about 40-45 psi, you can still get some really pencil thin lines, like way more detail than you probably ever need for a shirt, to be quite honest with you. So it's not that you can't achieve it, but if you try to use that same technique on a smooth piece of paper, the truth is that that's probably not going to work. Your detail is not going to be as detailed. It's going to fuzz out. It's going to have a lot more spread, a lot more overspray. You're going to have a lot harder time trying to hide it. And in general, those are my tips for producing more detail with your airbrush at a freehand level. Right now, say you like using the masking. If you've been following along with our how to airbrush tutorials, we do a lot of masking. A lot of people use a lot of masking. One of the channels that I like to watch to just help me kind of push out of my comfort zone has been Steve Leahy.
Did Mike say detail?
Now, if you've heard me mention him a lot, but I really recommend you go over to his YouTube channel and check out his artwork. I have a blade that Steve painted for me, and it is a literal blade and it has skulls on it. Now, if you watch Steve's videos, he uses lots of techniques to achieve this minute amount of detail. If it's on me, I would encourage you to go and watch his channel and get some tips on how to create that detail. I'm not saying you have to paint razor sharp blades, but the same techniques that he's using to paint those blades, where he's cutting out and masking and kind of doing one spot at a time, that same technique, you could use it for bigger paintings in the same premise. So if you have a little bit of a shaky hand, or if you have a little bit more trouble trying to get some of that detail in, one of the ways that you can focus down areas is by masking off just the area where you're going to paint and focusing in on that. In the past, I used to have a square cutout on a notebook paper, and it was about 1 by 1 inch. And anytime I was going to focus in on an area, especially like eyes, right? If you're doing a lowrider painting, a lowrider hood, and you get some eyes, right? It's a good idea to put your 1 by 1 inch cutout where that's all you see, and you could focus in just on doing that one little 1 inch by 1 inch. You don't care about the rest of the painting. Right now, you're just focused in on that one little spot. And it has helped me in the past to actually achieve some detail in areas when, maybe there's a big painting going on, but I just want this one spot to have some kind of extra detail, whether it's for focus or for just, adding something in that is important in some way. So, using masking is a good way to add detail. Do not be afraid to use other tools besides the airbrush. I know a lot of people out there paint on special types of paper and synthetic paper, and maybe use a little bit of scratching to achieve some hair strokes and whatnot. Please, by all means, go outside the boundary of the airbrush and try that. If all you're after is going for the most detail, and you're not worried about you have to do it on a vehicle or you have to do it on this, and all you're doing is for yourself, then please, by all means, do not limit yourself. Use masking, use pencils, use brushes, regular paint brushes, like a number 1 or a 00. And those brushes can achieve super detailed lines. Play with your mixture and your reduction of your paint, and do not be afraid to try a different surface. Do not think that just because one person said that this certain kind of illustration board is the best one ever, that's the one that you have to paint on. Because truth be told, that you could be going to pick up some other type of synthetic paper, and it might just work a little bit better for your drawing style, for your art style. Some people do things a certain way, some people lay things thick, some people have really light hands and lay things kind of smooth. So things that might work for one person might not work for you. Experimentation is also key. So don't be afraid. Get your needle in close, turn down your air pressure, and experiment. Go out there, get out of your comfort zone, and try some painting at different levels, whether it's really close, whether it's using the opaques, the illustration paint. Find what works for you, and that's ultimately what matters. I could give you all this advice, and this is a talking head video, which I hope some of you guys like. I'm not really showing much on here, but at the end of the day, it's all on you. That's why I'm not painting. I'm just here to let you know this is what you should be doing, and this is a good start. From there, it's going to be on you, right? I am only giving you the first intro to the book, It's on you to write the next chapter. Go ahead and try it out, and then come back and let us know in the comments what actually works for you. What pressure do you like working at? What kind of paint reduction do you like using? It's going to be different for everybody. Now, if I was me, I like working about 25 psi. You know, maybe a little bit 20 to 25 psi works really good. Over reduction of the paint, and then I don't mind building it up, right? Taking a few strokes to build up a color, or building it in layers is always great. So hopefully that helps you guys out. And again, like I said, make sure you go and check out Mr. Steve Leahy. He has a lot more tips, especially when it comes to really super like micro details. I really don't think there's anybody else out there right now kind of doing the detail at the level that Steve is. I do detailed paintings, but I don't paint blades. I don't do, those like postcard style paintings. Like those are very, very, very small, very, very, very detailed. And I highly recommend you go and you learn a little bit from him. It always helps to slow down, take a look at your painting and look at what you're trying to achieve. So keep your goals realistic, right? Don't think that you're painting today and tomorrow you're going to achieve a photorealism painting, because the truth of the matter is that not only do you have to learn how to paint, there's a lot that goes into producing a high quality photorealistic painting. Everything from lighting, color mixing, push and pull with the different colors. A lot. There is a lot that goes in to producing a photorealistic painting. Even if you're just doing it in black and white, there is still so much to do and so much to learn. And that's what I'm trying to encourage you. Go out there, learn a little bit, experiment for yourself, because that's the best way to learn. You can watch me all day, but if you ain't practicing, you ain't learning. Hopefully that helps you guys out, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Later, everybody.
Did Mike say detail?